Since August 25th, 2020, every single week, Matthew Stein has put out an episode of his podcast, The Procrastinated Podcast. It has been many weeks since then, 99 to be exact, and that brings us now to the 100th episode of The Procrastinated Podcast, brought to you by Matthew B. Stein!
Thank you so much. Please, hold your applause.
You suck!
I love you too, weird guy back there. Please, thank you. It has been 100 weeks since I initially started the Procrastinated Podcast. This is the 100th episode of the Procrastinated Podcast. And still, I am your host, Matthew B. Stein. Thank you so much for joining me. As 100 is a big milestone, essentially in any context, I wanted to take advantage of that milestone and sort of reminisce over the last 100 weeks and really look at what has changed in my life, what I've learned through my podcast, what has changed about me outside of my podcast, and really how different Matthew Stein is episode 1 to Matthew Stein is episode 100. The whole idea with starting this podcast was I want to document my life. It's also good for my career. I also just kind of want to start a podcast, make some videos, start some content. And I have since grown a lot, matured a lot, changed a lot. And it's been 100 weeks, but it doesn't feel like it's been that long. A lot of things have happened. I've changed, I've moved, I've grown, I've felt pain, I've cried, I've been happy, I've been sad. All of the things have happened since episode 1. So I figured it would be good if we went back in time and watched episode 1 and see where I came from, I guess, and really how things have changed, and take a look at what was on my mind in episode 1 and what is on my mind now here in episode 100. Let's get to it. Okay, here we go. So first off, I'm watching the video in 2x speed because your boy, for some reason on day 1, thought I should do an hour-long podcast. I'm a guy who has vague ideas. My mind likes to wander. So yeah, an hour podcast would be a good amount of time for me. That's a good amount of time to fill. Surely I can do that. A bit ambitious, we'll say, because the hour-long video is rough. I don't get how people watched, 40 or 50 of these until I finally decided to switch up the format. Anyways, we move on. Also, with the name, the Procrastinated Podcast, still kind of in that same state. Procrastinated Podcast is not a great name. It's so long, it's hard to type, and if you look it up on YouTube, it just blends in with all of the procrastination videos, so could be a little better, but it's still in that workshop phase, despite being in episode 100. Never found a better one somehow, or never really took the time to brainstorm it, I guess. Hoopla.
The name of this podcast really is...
Wait. I guess one thing didn't change. I remember when I made my first few episodes, my dad mentioned that I swear a lot, and I was like, yeah, sure, okay, guy, I guess I swear a lot, but in comparison to other college students, I'm not swearing that much. But I didn't understand at the time that, like, you can swear in a YouTube video, and, like, during a podcast, I can swear, but, like, if you swear too much, if you don't have a word to say, you don't have to swear. There are better words you can use in the meantime to better fill that time and make a better point. Glad we have grown out of that, I guess we'll say. Also, with the TV, wanting the TV involved, it does kind of show my aspirations from day one to make my podcast better, because I've always wanted to do more with my podcast, but motivation, time, schedule, being a student, it was hard to really get the wheel churning, but over time we've made progress for sure, especially in the past couple weeks. Been drastic progress, I would say.
Especially now that school, wasn't that cool
because I've gotten much better at being more concise in my videos. I much prefer the method I'm in now of cutting off the fat, because I literally set up this camera on episode 1, was like, all right, I'm just gonna talk for an hour, and whatever I got, and we're gonna go with that. That's a good idea, and I had to start the show somehow, but it's really painful. It's not an enjoyable video to watch. And I thought the four little edits I put into this episode were like, oh, okay, hey, it's gonna keep people engaged. It doesn't do much. It doesn't really do much at all. Sorry, I'm shaking the table with my leg, my knees. I'm a little anxious. I wasn't sure if I would be able to do this, is what I just said. And it's a very funny line because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do the podcast. It felt like a big undertaking. It felt like a big job. Like, oh God, I'm a student. I got all these things going on. I got my social life. How am I going to be able to do this podcast and still live the life I want to live? Is it going to take over my time? What's going to happen with it? And I felt like it was just a big job. It was something that I didn't really want to, but also wanted to add to my plate, and I wasn't sure if I would have time for it. And I thought that throughout, and I still think that sometimes now, but I have the time for it. And even in time, I've gotten better at it, so it takes me less time to do it. I don't know, it's just funny looking back and thinking about how I wasn't sure I could really take it on, but now I'm sitting here, having done it for 100 weeks, where I'm questioning whether I want to keep doing it still, but I feel I'm much more confident that if I wanted to, I could just keep doing this till the end of time. I'm in a much different confidence state, at least with my podcast. Yeah, it's just changed a lot. I'm no longer worried about it. I know I can do it. I'm confident I can do it. It's just about doing it. And that's, I guess, where I was when I started the podcast as well. It's just about doing it. I'm at the 20-minute mark of the podcast, and I'm saying, this is hard. I didn't know if I'd be able to do this. This is a lot harder than I was anticipating. Bro, you're a third of the way there, and you're saying it's too hard. You don't know if you're able to do it. Maybe you should rethink your plan. Again, if you watched the first episodes and made them through, like, hats off to you. Props. You're either a cause for my birth or a real one. I appreciate you.
Look, it's me on the computer, kitten. Look, you watch me on the computer, but it's not me now, it's me then. Not right now, you silly boy. It was back then. Oh, you're such a silly. Oh, he's so happy.
Enough! I'm getting to the point in the episode where I'm really starting to struggle here. I'm 38 minutes in, and my brain is clearly ran out of ideas. I have nothing left to say of value. There's nothing being added in this moment, and I still held on to that 1 hour goal and just kept pushing on blindly into the night for no good reason, when I should have realized if you don't have anything else to really say or mention, end the podcast. It's okay. I was so stuck up with this idea that it had to be an hour because other famous podcasts were an hour at least, so it had to be an hour, but it's okay, Matthew. You don't have to go to an hour.
I feel like I'm just rambling this whole time, and I feel like how I'm talking maybe somewhat monotone, but okay, alright.
I feel like I've been rambling somewhat and been talking somewhat monotone. Ding, ding, ding! Ding, ding, ding! You nailed it, buddy. You hit the nail on the head, pal. You got it right on top, baby. You have been rambling, and you have been speaking monotone, but it's okay, because it's the first episode of your podcast. Oh, you poor little sweet baby Matthew. You have so much to learn, and I still have so much more to learn, but I've learned a lot in the last 100 weeks. Poor baby, you were very bad at this, but you had you learned. And just like that, the first episode of the Procrastinating Podcast is over and done with. Watched on 2x speed, it wasn't the real organic experience. Had I watched 2x speed, I almost definitely would have fallen asleep, but it's okay. I had a lot of same thoughts then that I have now. A lot of things haven't changed, but so many more things have changed. I'm still the same Matthew Stein, but in a lot of ways I'm different. I've matured, I've opened my eyes a little more. I was still sort of stuck in the I know everything sort of phase. I'm probably still in that phase as well, but I'm knowing less as the days go on, and it's a good feeling. Okay, what are we saying, Matthew? So we're back, and I have watched episode 1 of the Procrastinated Podcast, and as I went on in the sort of the post-episode review, a lot has changed. I am a different person. I'm more confident in saying I'm a young adult, because at the time I would say I'm a young adult, but I still felt very much like a child, and I still feel like a child now, but I'm a little more assured in my ways, I guess we'll say. I wasn't sure back then that the Procrastinated Podcast was a good name, and I'm almost certain it's not a good name now. We still have it. It's still rolling with it, because I'm sticking to my origins, but maybe we should ditch it anyways. The world wasn't great then, and the world isn't great now. I was confused then, and I'm confused now. Met some new people, lost some friends, made some friends, faded away grew apart from some people, matured, had some heartbreaks, had some arguments, had some fights, had some joy, had some peace, had some every emotion you can possibly name under the sun I've experienced since this episode 1. A lot of things have changed, but yet I'm still Matthew B. Stein. I am still your host of the Procrastinated Podcast, and you are still watching this and hopefully enjoying it even more than you enjoyed the first episode. Several weeks ago, I had ideas that I wanted to quit on episode 100 because I didn't know where I was going with this podcast. I didn't know the direction it was going because it felt like it was directionless. But it's found its footing once again, and I feel confident in the way I'm moving. And my mom even pitched me an idea, not 100, but maybe quit once I get a job, because that is sort of a resolution to this chapter that I started with, being confused and trying to figure everything out 100 weeks ago. Unfortunately, I don't have any merch announcement or any giveaway to announce for episode 100, but I would like to thoroughly say, and genuinely mean this from the bottom of my heart, if you're my parents, or if you're one of my classmates, or one of my friends, or somebody I knew from high school, or somebody who somehow stumbled upon my podcast naturally, and I don't even know you, regardless of who you are, or how I know you, or if I even know you, if you have watched this episode, or from episode 1 to episode 100, or 1 episode, or 2 episodes, or 17 episodes, or you watch every other episode, regardless, if you've watched 1 episode or a couple minutes of my podcast, that's incredible. I thoroughly appreciate you. You are an interesting person. It's really cool that I actually make this thing and people watch it, even though I feel like majority of my audience is my parents, and maybe they have different accounts, so they bump up the views on every video, so I feel good about myself. But if that's the case, that's the case, and I'm fine being blind but innocent. So, yeah, it's episode 100. I've done this now for 100 weeks. Missed a couple episode uploads. A lot of things have changed and happened. But ultimately, I think I'm a better person. More confident, know more things, more mature, more patient, maybe a better listener. I don't really know. But I'm still Matthew B. Stein. And you are still fantastic, just like you have been, as always. And I'll see you, and we gotta do it like the original way. We gotta do it the way that it's supposed to be done. I have been your host, Matthew B. Stein. You have been fantastic, as always. And I'll see you in next week's episode of the Procrastinated Podcast, episode 101, past the century mark. Thank you so much for taking even 12 seconds out of your day to watch a video that I've created. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you next time. Episode 100. That's crazy. I definitely did not think I would get to 100 back in the day. While